Kyrie, and welcome back. We're going to be starting chapter 2 of John, the Gospel of John today. But before we actually get into that, I need to explain how I plan on working through chapter 2. It changes from chapter 1. In chapter 1, by the time we got towards the end of the chapter, I was just doing one verse at a time, one verse a week. Monday was Greek, Tuesday, Wednesday was Latin, and sometimes if I had anything special that I had prepared, it'd be Friday or Saturday. So I'm still going to be doing the Monday and Wednesday release, Monday of Greek and Tuesday of Latin. A change for Friday and for the format is, well, whenever I finish an entire page of a paragraph, this next paragraph of the Greek is actually going to be cover 4 pages versus 1 through 12. So whenever I finish an entire page, so this would be 1 through 4, and then I think it's 5 through 7. I could be wrong about that. No, it's 5 through 8. I'm going to do the review, the comparison between the Greek and the Latin the Friday of that week. So when I finish that final video for that page, and then after I've finished all 12 of the verses, at least for this paragraph, then we're going to do the final review together, and then that's when I will give my made-up grade. I'm still going to be doing that. I find it fun, at least. Other changes: I'm no longer going to be doing just one verse a week for each language. To save a little bit of time so that it doesn't take us another year almost to get through chapter 2, I'm going to be doing half a page. And that's going to be, sometimes it's going to be one verse, sometimes, in this case, it's going to be 2. And I might have to stop midway through a verse at a comma or a convenient break. But I want to get through more text from this point on than we have in the past. The final change is I'm no longer going to be taking proper nouns like Kana here or Galilee here and looking for whether or not they have an article and seeing if which version of the article translation works best. I'm only going to relegate that to one word, and I don't remember how often the word God, theos, is going to even show up, but that's the only one that I'm going to apply it to because that's the only one that actually matters in the controversy that we talked about from the first paragraph of chapter 1. So I believe that's everything that I needed to talk about. Latin versus Greek reviews are going to be by page, just like last time, but I'm going to be doing it Friday, the week after we finish that page, and then compiling them all together at the end of the paragraph. Still going to be Greek and Latin on Monday and Wednesday, and I'm not just going to be doing one verse anymore. It's going to be half a page, which means these are going to be much longer videos, like this one, which is probably going to be horribly long considering how long I've been talking. Let's go ahead and get started. This is the rubric. It's the same that we've been using since the beginning of chapter 1. I might need to print a new one. This one's getting kind of old. But this is everything that we're looking for as we go through this text. We want to make sure that we properly identify each word so that we understand its function in the sentence and in some cases what the special clause construction is. And all this information right here will help us do that. Let's go ahead and take a look at our reading. As I said, I'm going to go through the end of verse 2 today, which is about half of the page. Actually, it looks like exactly half the page. Kai te heimarai, te trite gamos egeneto en Kana, tes Galileias, kai ein he meter tu Jesu, eke. Eklethe de kai ho Jesus kai hoi mathetai autu eston gamon. And that's where we're going to stop. The very first word that we have at the beginning of this chapter is a nice addition for us to tell. It's just a reminder that chapter 2 and chapter 1 do have something to do with each other, and that's kai. It's our conjunction, and it just means and. Now, the first thing that we really want to find whenever we go through and translate something into English is we want to get our verb first so that we know what to look for in a subject, especially for Greek and Latin because they are inflected languages. So we'll want to look for that first, and then we can go through verb, subject, object, prepositional phrases, and other constructions afterward. Te, that's going to be a dative article, so that's not it. We've got another sub-iota there, and there, and there, so none of these 4 words are a verb. Well, technically they could be, but heimer, trit, and these taus, all of these are either articles or nouns, or adjective in that case, so that's not going to work as a verb. Gamos, os is not a normal verb ending. Sometimes we may get that for some contract verbs. I think there might be some forms of optative in some of the dialects, but gamos, that's not it either. And here we come to ageneto. Ageneto has epsilon tau omicron as its ending, and that's going to be our verb. This comes from, I think it's ginomai, genesomai, agonomane, gagona. I think those are the principal parts. Since we're built off of the third principal part, this is going to be a aorist, and eto is our third person singular ending. And since it's ginomai, we know that this is a deponent verb, so it has passive endings, but we translate it actively. And it is, of course, indicative, so it's a real action. And this can mean either happened, one-time completed action because of the aorist, or became. This showed up very, very often in the early part of chapter 1. So it's actually kind of comforting to see that again. So we want to find a singular subject, and this, of course, doesn't tell us the gender of the subject because it's not a participle. So we want to go back before this. All these had sub-iotas, so that automatically rules them out for being nominative and therefore our subject. The only option from here is gamos, which omicron sigma could be a nominative singular, but let's take a look at the rest of the clause to make sure. N is a preposition, so whatever comes after it must either be its object or be a genitive owning the prepositional phrase. Kana, that's hard to tell. Tes Galileas, that's not going to be it. Tes tells us that Galilee here is genitive, so our subject has to be gamos with this omicron sigma, nominative, singular, masculine. And this word means wedding. So we have and wedding happened, or and wedding became. And based on how it sounds, in English, happened is probably going to be the correct one, not became. Next, let's go and take a look at te, heimerai, te, trite. Heimera is our word for day, and this is alpha sub-iota, especially because we got the article here. We know it's going to be dative singular feminine. Those two together, and then te, trite. Trite is going to be the same thing, and since trite is a adjective, it's an ordinal adjective. I'm going to write that up there. Arrow to its antecedent. And since we've got dative here, happened doesn't want a indirect object. So dative and indirect object doesn't make any sense. There has to be something else. We've got day here, we've got third here, which is what trite means. Then time, dative of time is our best construction. And this would then mean on the day, the third one. Because we've got the two different articles. And on the day, the third one. And if we wanted to polish this into slightly better English, we would say, and on the third day. But if you recall from chapter 1, I don't at least care very much about polished English. I care about accuracy of the language to get not just the sense, but the same, as close, while retaining sense in English, the same words. So anytime there's an article, I want to translate it into English, even if English doesn't like it. And sometimes, in order to help it work in there, we have to include implied words, like that one. Sometimes. You really want to be careful with that, though. Moving on. N, I believe, takes the dative in its case. But I could be wrong about that, if I am. Sorry. But kana here, with that A, there's nothing to tell us what case it is specifically. So I believe that this one is indeclinable. If so, I will post that at the bottom of the screen now. That's what I'm going to assume right now, that this kana is the object, since tes Galileas is genitive, singular. The article tells us that it's feminine. So these can't be the object of the preposition, so it has to end there. In, now I can't remember in English if it's spelled with a C or a K. I'm just going to spell it with a K. And this, because it's genitive, is going to be genitive of possession of Galilee. I believe I spelled that correctly. So there's our first line. Let's go ahead and move on to the second one. Kai, another conjunction, just meaning and. Ain, we've seen before. This comes from Amy. Ain is our third person singular imperfect form, active and indicative, was he meter. He tells us nominative singular. Since there's no accent mark there, we know that this isn't a relative pronoun, it's an article, which I probably should have written up here because of all the ones we've seen before. Articles are ho, he, to. The nominative singular feminine, meter, is also going to be nominative singular feminine. They go together. And then we can move on with the rest of the sentence. We have tu Jesu eke. Tu is clearly genitive singular, either masculine or neuter. Jesu is our irregularly formed name for Jesus. Omicron, upsilon there could be genitive or could be dative. And it's genitive in this case because a dative doesn't make much sense. In Latin, it would be fine. A verb of being can sometimes work to create a dative of possession. It would be, and the mother was to the Jesus, meaning the mother was Jesus's. But since we've got eke here, dative of possession, and also Greek, doesn't make any sense. It's just of the Jesus. Eke is an adverb meaning there. So far, verse 1. And the mother of the Jesus was there. And then we can move on to verse 2. Eklethe, we have our verse right there. And this theta eta here is our personal ending. And this should tell us immediately what tense our verb is. This is going to be the aorist passive. And it is third person singular. And it means invited. Ed because it's passive happening to whatever its subject is, so we want to find that. De kai ho Jesus. Ho tells us here that Jesus with omicron upsilon sigma is nominative. This, if you recall, is the kind of irregular nominative form of Jesus. De, if you recall, is a coordinating conjunction that can either mean and or but, both of them unemphatic. Allah would be the emphatic word for but. Since we've got kai, I'm going to go with but for day. But and the Jesus invited. We're going to want to change this so that it sounds a little bit better than in English. And the Jesus invited. I might want to go for had been would be pluperfect, so we don't want to change the tense there. That's too far away from aorist. Was invited is at least when we're translating from Latin into English, that's a viable way to do the perfect passive. So I'm going to go with that. Was invited, but we should understand that this is a single time action because aorist, completed past action, imperfect would imply ongoing past action. So this is was invited in the perfect completed past tense idea rather than imperfect was invited and was continuing to be invited. That's not the case. Moving on. Too much. Sorry. And hoi mathetai. Hoi there is nominative singular masculine. Mathetai is also nominative singular masculine, but of the first declension. And the disciples autu. Omicron upsilon here is going to be our genitive singular form. It's either masculine or neuter, but it's going to be masculine since we know Jesus is masculine. This is showing that he is possessing the disciples of him. It almost wrote nominative there. And that's from, oh, that's in English, sorry. Autos. There we go. Aute. And then auto. that's what this is from. And last of all, we have eis ton gamon. Eis is a preposition, and it can take a variety, well, most of them can take a variety of cases. And now my brain is blanking on whether or not this can take more than one. It's almost always the case. Well, if it does take more than that, I'll put another note at the bottom. I'm sorry. Failing, and this is only the first video. In this case, ton gamon tells us that eis is taking the accusative. And that's telling us accusative place to which. And gamos we already know is masculine. Oops. Wrong bracket. I'm sorry. Into the wedding. And there we go. That's everything that we were going to do so far. We don't have theos to take a look at whether or not it needs an article. Instead, let's just look at what our English is. And on the day, the third one, a wedding happened in Cana of Galilee. And the mother of the Jesus was there. And the Jesus was invited, and the disciples, and we would understand that ekklethe would be intended to be repeated again, except in the plural. We don't find it there. And the disciples of him into the wedding. Sounds a little bit off in our English, but that's okay. We've got the entire sense there. I don't think there's any special clause at all, and I believe we've done everything that we were supposed to. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that this has been helpful for you, and I hope as we continue on into chapter 2, this continues to serve you, and that your knowledge of Greek and the Bible improves even as mine is while I do this. Have a good day, and if I could remember the Greek word for goodbye, I would insert that there. Farewell.